Hello students, I am Dr. Sandeep today going to deliver a lecture on fundamentals of banking. In that subject, we will cover the evolution of banking. The first one chapter, that is evolution of banking. And from that chapter, we will discuss the first one point, that is meaning, definition and origin of bank. Students, for the fundamentals of banking, University Authority has allotted a specific syllabus. The first one chapter, that is evolution of banking, that is uh, we are going to discuss in the first chapter, that is evolution of banking. Then the next one chapter, that is functions of bank. Then the third one chapter, that is procedure of opening and operating of deposit account. And the fourth one chapter is methods of remittances. These four chapters are allotted for the semester first. The first one thing, that is a meaning and definition of bank. Students, there are some experts, there are some economists have narrated the definition of bank. Different kind of definitions are narrated by the different kind of experts. The first one, that is Professor Sayers, are stated that bank is an institution whose debts are widely accepted in settlement of other people's debts to each other, which means these settlements are made between each people or each other. Then the next one definition is made by the Dr. H.L. Hart. According to H.L. Hart, the bank is an institute which deals with money and credit, which means whenever any institute deals with money and credit, then it will be called as a bank, which means not only dealing with the money but also it should be registered according to the legal procedure. But very basic thing about any institute, whenever that institute deals with money and credit, then it will be considered as a bank, which means a bank perform these two functions. A bank accepts the deposit in the form of money or in the form of different kind of financial assets, and they also provide a loans and advances, which means they provide a credit to the customers, which means whenever any institute perform these two type of function, then that institute will be called as a bank. According to Sayers and H.L. Hart, basically, and in concluding part, that is whenever any institute offer these two type of function to the customer, then that institute will be called as a bank. Then the next one thing, that is evolution of banking in Europe. First of all, we must know that the origin of the word of the bank. According to one view, in the English word, it owes its origin to the Italian word banco or bancus or banco. All these words mean a bench upon which medieval European moneylenders and money chargers used to display their coins. These business were practiced by the Jews in Europe. These Jews possibly flourished most in Italy in the early years, and hence the Italian word came into vogue. In England, banking as an independent business date back to the 14th century. In those days, the Jews of Lombardy in England used to transact their business on benches at marketplaces. One can further point to a historical fact in support of this view. When a banker was unable to meet his obligation to his customers, according to the custom, his banco, which means a bench, was destroyed or broken to pieces. Hence, the word bankrupt was derived. Thus, it appears that the word bank is derived from the Italian words banco or bancus. Okay, this is the evolution of or the origin of word of bank. Then when we discussed about the evolution of banking in Europe, then we will have to look towards this some historical perspective, which means whenever a bank perform this uh, or have a great canvas of history, then we will have to look towards the historical perspective. In case of historical perspective, in a Greece, the temple banks or the temples served as a banks. In Greece, the temples served as a bank because the temples commanded the trust of the people. They could attract deposits and other valuables from the people. The priest also lent funds to the people and charged a marginal interest on these loans. There also existed private bankers who flourished more than the temples as the former offer interest on the public deposits, which means the temple banks have a very great importance in the evolution of banking in a Europe. In Athens, the famous city state of Greece, banking was prosperous business. Capital was raised by the capitalists. Merchants, moneylenders, and goldsmiths are the ancestors of modern banks insofar as all of them lent money, financed trade, accepted the deposits, arranged for the transfer of funds from one place to another place. These we have to seen are the functions of performed by the modern banks, which are uh, very well known that. Then the Jews started their banking business in their individual capacities during the 12th century, which means goldsmiths are also started their banking business during the 12th century. The main function was money lending against interest. The goldsmiths started their business in Italy and subsequently spread that business across the world, which means across the England, France, Belgium, and other European countries. The moneylenders in Florence were well known throughout Europe. The earliest bank known in history was established in Venice in the year 1157. In Spain, the magistrate of Barcelona established a bank in 1401. The Bank of Genova was established in 1407 in the Europe. When we discussed about the evolution of banking in England, then goldsmiths performed the functions of money changing in England because goldsmiths have safes where they kept their own valuables. They started accepting the valuables of the people. For this service, the forerunner of modern safe deposit vaults, they charged a small rent. The merchants kept their daily collections of cash with the goldsmiths for safekeeping. For these deposits of cash and other valuables, the goldsmiths issued notes duly signed by themselves. These notes were a kind of acknowledgement that said amount of cash was deposited with the goldsmiths signing the note. Because the note carried a promise of payment to the bearer of note of the sum written in the note, it could be used as a money. The receipt issued by goldsmiths thus because banknote and subsequently the currency notes of modern times. The British goldsmiths who accepted deposits and issued notes to depositors learned by experience that all deposits of money held was not required to be kept in a ready cash. Instead, if they lent a part of it, it was a profitable proposition. Moreover, since the notes themselves could be circulated as a money, the requirement of cash holding were further reduced. Here we find the seeds of modern credit creation of a bank. Once this possibility was successfully tried, the goldsmiths started offering interest to the customers on their deposits instead of charging fees for safekeeping of their funds. For recording deposits and withdrawals, the goldsmiths started giving passbooks to their customers, which were the known as a passage books. Those goldsmiths who proposed in this business gave up their original business and become specialized in banking. It will thus be clear that most of the important functions of modern banks like accepting deposits, issuing bank notes, giving loans, creating credit, maintaining current accounts like these were performed by these British goldsmiths. Okay, which means the British goldsmiths have a very great importance in the British banking system. Then the next one thing, okay, then the next one thing that is evolution of banking in India. Students, when we discuss about the evolution of banking in India, then we will have a very large canvas of history of banking in India. Basically, the modern banking system is evolved by time to time. First of all, when we discuss about the evolution of banking in India, then we have to look towards the first one point, that is Vedic period. Banking is believed to have existed in the most crude form in India as early as the Vedic period. Money lending was a common practice in India with the ancient people. The Puranas and Smritis mention about money changing and money lending activities. Manusmriti contains references regarding deposits, pledges, policy on loans, and rate of interest. Kautilya Arthashastra also speaks extensively on banking practices in India, which means when we discussed about the evolution of banking, then we have to trace out that historical perspective up to Vedic period. Then the next one thing about indigenous bankers. The indigenous bankers came forward into the 17th century. These indigenous bankers have a great importance in the establishment of banking system in India. India had trade relations with the most of the countries of the world. To facilitate trade, some banking facilities were obviously essential and were provided by traditional Indian bankers. Within the country also, trade and industry were widespread and highly developed through decentralized and on a small scale. Because internal trade and industry were prosperous, credit needs were felt and adequately met by Indian bankers. These bankers are known as the indigenous bankers, and they were the forerunners of modern banking institutions because they perform the functions of accepting deposits, giving loans, and facilitating trade by dealing in hundis like bill of exchange. When the British came to India during 17th century, there were several banking firms in the country doing traditional Indian banking business, and even the British merchants took their help. The indigenous bankers represented proprietorship or joint family firms. They worked with their own funds, though they did accept deposits. For money lending, promissory notes were issued. Hundis or bill of exchange were also common. They facilitated remittance of funds. They gave loans to farmers, small businessmen, craftsmen, and traders. Usually, they combine money lending and some other business like trading, farming, and etc. Basically, the modern banking organized in India from 17th century. When we discuss about the evolution of banking, then we have to look towards the presidency banks, which was established by the British government in 18th century. For the benefits and for serving the British dynasty, they established these presidency banks across the India. When we discuss about the presidency bank, then banking in India in the modern sense can be said to have made a sound beginning with the establishment of Bank of Kolkata in 1806. The East India Company gave a charter of banking business to bank in 1809, and it was renamed as a Bank of Bengal. With the full patronage and support of East India Company, the Bank of Bengal started the issue of paper currency in 1823 and was permitted to open branches in 1840. In this year, it was given the status of Presidency Bank of Bengal. In 1840 and in 1843, the presidency banks of Mumbai and Kolkata was established respectively, which means the Bank of Mumbai or Bank of Bombay was established in 1840 and the Bank of Kolkata was established in 1843. These three banks were amalgamated to form a Imperial Bank of India, which became a State Bank of India after its nationalization. Which means a Imperial Bank of India also have a very great importance in the evolution of banking in India. When we discuss about the imperial banking in India, thus it clear that the origin of modern banking is to be found in the business of merchants, moneylenders and goldsmiths. They gradually adopted various functions of bank with an increase in the volume of business. The business passed on from individuals to public limited companies. Because such institutions were necessary in the years following the industrial and commercial revolutions, they experienced rapid growth during the second half of the 19th century. With the turn of the century, the growth of banking had already become a necessary commitment of economic development and in many ways a precondition of economic development. And therefore, the government were decided to set up a Imperial Bank of India for the development of Indian economy. And we are very well known that that Imperial Bank of India got converted into State Bank of India, which was nationalized in 1955. Then when we discussed about the evolution of banking in India, then the need for a central bank or a authority of a similar type was perhaps firstly helped by the Warren Hastings in a 1773. It did not, however, materialize until 1921 when the three presidency banks were amalgamated to form the Imperial Bank of India. The Imperial Bank of India was primarily a commercial bank until the establishment of Reserve Bank of India. It functioned as a central bank partially. At least it functioned as a banker to the government. In 1926, a Royal Commission on Indian Currency was appointed under the chairmanship of Sir Hilton Young and was popularly known as the Hilton Young Commission. This commission recommended that the responsibility of issuing paper currency and performing the functions of central bank should be unified and should be entrusted to one single authority. The commission recommended the establishment of central bank to be renamed as a reserve bank and both these functions were to be entrusted to it. Before that, the issuing of paper currency was the responsibility of the central government and the banking functions of the government were performed by the Imperial Bank of India. In compliance with the recommendations of Hilton Young Commission, the Finance Minister introduced a bill in the Indian Legislative Assembly in January 1927. But unfortunately, this bill was dropped owing to sharp differences of opinion on the constitution and composition of the bank. Subsequently, a fresh bill was introduced in the Indian Legislative Assembly in 1933 and it was passed in due course and got the assent from the Governor General in March 1934. After completing the organizational preliminaries, the Reserve Bank of India was inaugurated on the 1st April 1935. And from that establishment of Reserve Bank of India, the Indian banking system got a very concrete platform for future development. Then onwards, we are very well known that the government made the nationalization of private banks. In the first phase, which means in the 19 July 1969, the government made the nationalization of 14 banks, 14 private banks, which means the prior nationalization, these banks were worked as a private banks, which means these banks are owned by the private entities. At the time of nationalization of these banks, the government laid down a specific criteria for the selection of these banks for the nationalization, which means those banks have an annual turnover more than 50 crore rupees were selected for the nationalization, which means in the process of nationalization, all assets, all financial activities are owned by the Indian government, which means they demolished the ownership of private entities from that bank and made a ownership or established a ownership of government on the that particular banks. Again, in a 1980, in a 15 April 1980, the government made the nationalization of six banks, which means again six private banks were nationalized by the Indian government in a 1980. Which means at the time of 1980, those banks have their annual turnover more than 200 crore rupees were selected for the nationalization. Which means up to 1980, there were 20 banks were worked as a nationalized banks in the Indian banking system. Thank you.